Guys, Bellator crowned their newest champ last night, Juan The Spaniard Archuleta. Nick and I are going to talk about why he is not a fighter to sleep on right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel. So Nick, our friend Juan The Spaniard Archuleta, so happy for him. Crowned Bellator's newest champion. He fought out a tough decision victory against a very game Patchy mix last night. And I'm so excited because Juan, we know Juan. We met him a few years ago and have stayed in loose contact ever since. He's such a good guy, such a skilled fighter, and I'm glad he's finally getting the shine that he very much deserves.
Absolutely. I've never met anybody in mixed martial arts or any walk of life for that matter that is as nice and genuine as a person as Juan Archuleta. So I couldn't be happier for him. Bellator definitely has a great champion at 135 and now in the mix. He was the champion in 4 weight divisions in his last organization. And, after picking up this first title, if things go right for him, I could see him taking a couple of titles in Bellator.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it was the fight was a great fight. Patchy Mix came in there. It was obvious early on what his game plan was. Right. He was looking to submit. He thought that he might have a little bit of an advantage if he could get the fight to a point where it was more of a grappling exchange on the ground. And you got to give credit to Juan. He really warded off some tough submission attempts in the first and second round. And then he corrected what was causing those takedowns, which was a bit of an overextension on some of his shots in the early part of the fight, and was able to correct that and piece him apart in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds.
Yeah, I mean, he showcased all the forms of martial arts that are prevalent in MMA today. It shows that he knows how to defend. Yeah, somebody that has a higher jiu-jitsu skill level than Juan Archuleta is somebody that you have to worry about.
Sure.
You could see Patchy mixing those first few rounds, especially when they weren't sweaty and slippery. He was threatening some pretty interesting positions, a lot of stuff that looks like he was going to transition into the leg locks. And Juan, you can clearly tell he's been working on defending. And I think going into this fight, he knew he needed to not so much focus on trying to submit Patchy mix whenever it went to jiu-jitsu, but trying to defend the submission. And I think he did great with the 4 submission attempts that Patchy mix had early on in the fight. He did everything that he needed to do. There were times where it looked like maybe he should explode out of this, but that in the beginning when you're not slippery can actually be very dangerous when you have a guy like Patchy Mix right connected to your legs and it doesn't seem like they're in a threatening position, but then you jump out of it and he's still connected to one of your legs and then you're in trouble. So Juan was very patient where he needed to be and ultimately was able to get the fight where he wanted it in the later rounds.
Patchy did a great job with that body lock once he got to the back. A couple of times when Juan overextended ever so slightly on a shot, you saw Patchy shoot in, get the takedown, and then work to get to that back position, put that figure 4 in there and go to work. But Juan, to his credit, stayed extremely patient. He played the hand fight game, prevented the choke from happening, allowed that first round. I think he kind of was okay. I just need to defend here. I know that my gas tank is going to be better than his in the later rounds. I need to not get caught in this submission, do what I need to do to defend, concede this round to a certain degree, and reassess. And you could hear TJ Dillashaw, his main training partner in the corner, correcting the overextension on some of those shots. Right. And you saw an immediate, this is what I talk about, a true champion's ability is the ability to correct problems that you're having mid-fight, and that was it.
Right. And
you saw an incredible just minor adjustment, and man, did he go to those body shots in the third, fourth, and fifth round. Some of those were, I honestly don't think that they was doing them justice just watching them on TV. Those were hard shots that he landed on Patchy.
Yeah, he showed all the signs of a real champion and a deserving champion. You're so right about the overextending on some of those punches. Juan is an exciting fighter. He has a lot of really great knockouts on his resume. And sometimes when you have that, you tend to want to just go knock somebody's head out of the cage, and it happens a lot for you. Right. So why not? But when you're fighting a guy that can take your back really quickly, or can take over any of those little situations,
close that distance.
Exactly. You have to be careful. And the adjustment that he made, that TJ was pointing out to him was, don't overextend on these shots. Instead of throw 100%, let's throw 70% and more volume. And he did just that. And like you said, I mean, he was, I think at one point had double the amount of landed strikes and significant strikes that Patchy Mix had, I think in the third round, going through the third round. And so he did everything he needed to do to fix all those problems that he was having, stuff some, takedown and jiu-jitsu moments that Patchy Mix was trying to throw in on him later in the fight, and then keep the fight where he knew he had the advantage, which was standing.
Absolutely. And he's one of those guys that, like Tony Ferguson, he can very much weaponize pace.
Yeah.
So he can use just a pace and a tempo that you can't keep up with. And, we know that comes from his just insane strength and conditioning regimen that all of the training lab guys go through with Sam Calvita.
Right.
I mean, he's one of the best in the game. They call him a mad scientist. He trains mostly out of his garage. He uses the bikes and all kinds of old school, workout tactics.
He beats those guys up.
Yeah, he knew that Juan in his corner knew that Patchy was going to have a good first round, possibly second round, that he was going to come out. He was going to try to impose his jiu-jitsu will. That was where he thought he could win the fight. And that if they could take it to the later rounds and take him into deeper waters, so to speak, that's where they would have a clear-cut advantage. And also, if they could keep the fight standing, that would be where he has a clear-cut advantage, which brings us to his striking regimen, which is, the Bang Muay Thai system. Obviously, you see a lot of that movement side to side, covering a lot of ground. In just two punches, you can cover half the cage, and you're mixing up those kicks. You're going to the body. Juan looked to me as good as any 135er out there last night. That was really a good performance, really a great job overcoming adversity. Looks like he's going to be up against Sergio Pettis next.
Yeah.
So how do you see that fight sort of playing out? Sergio's a great fighter, top contender in the UFC at 125 and looking to reinvent himself at 35 in Bellator.
I think that's an interesting matchup. I do see Patchy Mix getting back in the mix against Archuleta soon. If they said, hey, we need to run that one back, I would watch that fight again. I do think Juan won the fight very clearly, but Patchy Mix is not out of the running for top contender at 135. Sergio seems like the right fit for right now, but I'm eager to see what Bellator does with this new champion, this division it's hot right now. They've got some names down there that are really fun that they're going to be able to mix up against each other and then ultimately give to the Spaniard. And I think he's going to be a great champion for the organization, great champion for the sport, and he's just a really good guy.
Yeah, it's very rare in this sport. Do you see somebody that's so talented, so capable, also a great human being? Man, this guy deserved that, and he got it. Yeah, that's so rare.
He cuts the right promos. He says the right things. Of course, he does all the right X's and O's and the punching and the fighting. He does all of that great. You brought up Bang Muay Thai, and if you kind of think of it, from a distance, Dwayne Ludwig has something that he's able to do with wrestlers. Generally, when you come from a wrestling background, you struggle in the striking realm a little bit. If you come from a boxing background, you kind of struggle with the wrestling realm. It's just the way the thing goes. If you grow up doing something, your body's used to doing that, then it's a little bit more easy for it to come naturally. Bang Muay Thai, TJ Dillashaw, big wrestling background. Juan Archuleta, a wrestling background. Cub Swanson, grappling and wrestling background. And they're all able to mix in these Bang Muay Thai styles, and he makes them seem like very fluid strikers and high-level strikers. TJ is one of the best, most elite strikers in MMA, and I would say Juan Archuleta is definitely up there with him.
And that's no small feat, because when you think about some of the strikers like Edson Barbosa, this guy Fazeev now that's getting a lot of attention, these high-level guys that have been doing Muay Thai their whole life or kickboxing their whole life, to come from the Dutch system, or even like Western boxing style, like a Kelvin Gastelum or something like that. But when you see these guys that were wrestlers, this is back in the day when TJ and these guys were going to college. They were wrestling, boxing, striking. That wasn't even on their mind.
Right.
They go and they work with Dwayne for, X amount of years, and they come out and they defeat elite level strikers with striking.
Right.
It's really crazy. The wrestling is there and they always go to it. And that is a threat, because if you're engaging in a stand-up striking match with somebody like Juan or somebody like TJ, you do have to keep in the back of your mind, hey, this guy could take me down at any second, which also opens up some striking here and there. But it's really impressive what he's done. And I think the thing about Dwayne's system is it requires a ridiculous amount of conditioning to move that much.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is not for the faint of heart and not for the ill-conditioned.
Right.
You have to really be able to move laterally, cover a lot of distance. And that's why, in my opinion, the coupling of Sam Calvita's strength and conditioning with Dwayne Ludwig's Muay Thai is a lethal combination, because you're giving them the skills to put on these just incredibly difficult to predict striking sequences.
Right.
And they're going to have the energy to do it all 5 rounds and wear you down, which is exactly what happened to Patchy in the 4th and especially the 5th. I mean, he looked like he was done.
Right. And I'm so glad that the judges saw it the way we saw it, and the way somebody who understands striking would watch that fight. Juan was not the aggressor, so to speak. He was controlling the fight. We talked about this a couple episodes ago. Controlling the fight from moving backwards.
Right.
Patchy Mix was consistently walking forward, kept his hands up, would throw some stuff, but very rudimentary with his striking. And Juan was picking him apart while moving around. It's very hard to switch stances from orthodox to southpaw and back and forth. Juan made it look seamless, kind of like a Sean O'Malley, who can he pops back and forth, and if you aren't paying attention, you don't even notice it. But if you do sit back and watch, it's a real mastery level thing. And Juan Archuleta is just like that. He's in there throwing jabs, and then he'll throw a switch kick, and then all of a sudden he's in a different position.
Right.
And he's standing in a different way, throwing jabs with the other hand, moving backwards. He'll attack for a second, threaten a little bit, maybe like a chain, fake takedown for some strikes, clinch up, throw some uppercuts, and then he's circling around, getting out. That kind of stuff is high-level mixed martial arts, and not a lot of people are that good at it. And Juan, even though he didn't sit Patchy Mix down with any of those shots, Patchy Mix is feeling those this morning, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's more of a testament to Patchy's chin than it is Juan's power.
And his stomach.
Those
body shots all night long.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Because we've seen Juan. I can't remember who the fighter was now. I'm drawing a blank. But when he exploded off the cage and just starched that guy with a walk-off knockout.
Yeah. I can't remember who
that was.
Was that Banderas?
Possibly. Yeah. But, the thing is, like, with this combination of this high-level striking, a lot of movement, and that great conditioning, it's that what a great camp they have there with those training lab guys. And I'm excited to see TJ Dillashaw get back in the mix. It was good to see him last night in the corner, and you could hear him I think that's one of the things with no fans in the stadium is that, like, it's not the same, but obviously, but it is kind of cool to hear the corners and give instruction. And that's why, it's
he's got a noticeable voice. You can definitely hear TJ when he's in
exactly.
And on TJ's behalf, you have to think, like, a lot of names have emerged in the 135 division over in the UFC. Same with Bellator, but particularly in the UFC. And I have a feeling when his suspension and everything is cleared and he's back in the mix at 135, we're going to be reminded exactly how good he is, because everybody's talking about the Peter Yans and the Sean O'Malleys and the Aljamain Sterlings. And they kind of forgot about him. But as soon as he's allowed to fight again, I think all of them are in trouble.
And those guys are, I mean, listen, Peter Yan can beat anybody on any given night, but so can TJ Dillashaw. That's no walk in the park for any fighter. Aljamain Sterling, I know, has been beefing back and forth with TJ a bit on social media.
Right.
I saw just a tweet here and a tweet there. I'm not saying those guys can't give TJ a good fight or give him a run for his money or maybe even possibly beat him, but that's TJ Dillashaw is nobody's walk in the park, and Absolutely. He could be the champion at 135 at any moment, and he has that crazy power to make it happen.
And it's really cool to see, TJ's a top 135er in the UFC. Juan is the top 135er in Bellator. There's no chance of their paths crossing. Even if they were in the same promotion, they wouldn't fight each other. But it's cool that they're kind of ruling that division in both major promotions, and they don't have to worry about fighting each other. They can both be the champions at 135 and not have to worry about fighting each other, which is super cool. And Patchy Mix versus Juan Archuleta, in my opinion, was most definitely the right fight for Bellator to make.
No question.
To see who deserves that vacant title.
That was a great fight. And in a weekend, quite frankly, that didn't have a ton of great fights, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This was the best one for me.
Yeah.
This was a really evenly matched fight.
Lived up to the hype.
Good fight. Absolutely lived up to the hype. Question, did you give the second round to Juan? Did you score that fight 49-46, or did you have Patchy winning the first two and then Juan winning the last three?
I had Patchy winning the first two. I thought the only round that was super close and hard to read was the second round.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe one or two refs might give it to Juan, but he was controlling, and that kind of makes me think. We were talking about it last night. They showed the statistics. They both had a takedown. Juan pretty much doubled his significant striking, but there was 4 submission attempts for Patchy Mix. And I looked at that. Obviously, they put it up as a positive statistic, but we were kind of talking about it. Is that a negative statistic? Because if you tried 4 times, shouldn't some props go to the guy that defended all 4 of those?
It's a good point. I mean, 4 submission attempts is a nice way of saying 4 failed submissions.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very much so. And I think Juan's composure that he had there was incredible. Obviously, the first round went to Mix.
Right.
What he had Juan down for a significant portion of that round, rather, and was doing a good job at actively trying to submit and move. But yeah, I also gave the second round to Patchy, but it was the only one that was close, in my opinion.
Right.
Rounds 3, 4, and 5 were clear-cut Juan rounds. Round 1 was obviously a mixed round, but I'm not mad at anybody scoring that 49-46. And to your point about the octagon control thing in Bellator, it's the cage control. I think you should drop octagon. I think you should drop cage. It's just control, because you don't have to be standing in the middle to be controlling the fight. It's like we mentioned Floyd Mayweather, and we mentioned the style that Juan has with his striking, where he explodes off the cage and he moves laterally and he makes you miss and he makes you come to him. That's control. Right. I don't care if Patchy's in the middle of the octagon.
Yeah, which
Juan
direction
was controlling
you're walking.
the striking. Yeah,
right.
It does not matter. And
so it can be translated with grappling or striking. So Juan was moving backwards, controlling the fight, even though in a casual's mind, Patchy Mix looks like he's trying to stand and bang. No, he's just trying to get in range to do something.
Right.
And Juan's not there for him to catch, and then he's there and he scores on him, and then he's out.
Yeah.
And that to me is actually, it can be more difficult in most cases, but it's the same thing as Patchy Mix on the ground. The reason I gave round 1 and 2 both to Patchy Mix is because he was controlling the fight.
Right.
He had it where he wanted it. And even though those 4 submission attempts were failed, he was still in control of the fight up to that point.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. I think you're right. I think we're onto something when we say that they should drop any word before control and just leave it at control. Who's controlling the round?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm being totally honest, I think Bellator obviously will make the fight with Sergio Pettis next.
Yeah.
But I don't see that fight being as competitive as last night's fight was.
No.
I think that Patchy presented a really tough grappling wrinkle that could have, or did give Juan some problems early on. I think that if you get Sergio versus Juan's going to be the better grappler. He's going to be the more physically dominant grappler, and he's the better striker, in my opinion. So as much, I don't think that this is the last time we see Juan Archuleta versus Patchy Mix for the Bellator title, and I hope it's not, because that was a great fight.
Yeah, those are the 2 top Bellator bantamweights for sure. That's a mouthful. 2 top Bellator bantamweights. Can't say that 5 times fast. If you can, let us know in the comments. But I want to see Sergio in there next. I think Juan, I don't think there was a ton of damage taken by Juan. I think he can probably be a pretty active champion for the organization. And I think Patchy Mix, that was his first loss in 25 fights, half of which were professional, half of which were amateur. All are difficult no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's pro, if you're getting paid for it, if you're amateur not getting paid for it. I think he learned a lot in that fight, especially in the later rounds. You know, if he would have just walked through and submitted Juan early on, he wouldn't have learned anything, and it wouldn't have been battle tested. He learned a lot of valuable lessons in last night's fight against Juan.
Absolutely. And the thing about Mix and Sergio to think about, obviously the Sergio fight being next. Sergio was a 125er in the UFC. Juan lost. He was on an 18-fight win streak, and he lost a decision to Pitbull, who's the 145 and 155-pound champion in Bellator. So you're talking about a guy that can contend with one of the best 55ers in the world, and now you're going to put him against a guy that spent most of his career at 25. I'm excited for that fight, but as a Juan Archuleta fan, I'm down to see that because I think that Juan matches up really well against Sergio.
I'd probably part with a little bit of money for that.
I think so. I think he would also be pretty heavily favored. So
I'd deal with that.
You wouldn't win too much, but
that's okay.
But that's all right, guys. What do you think about Juan Archuleta? He's exciting. I think we need to try to make him a household name. He's a great guy. Let us know in the comments. Did you watch his performance? If not, go back and watch it. He's a guy to keep your eye on for sure.
And he's putting on for Spain.
That's it. And as always, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and please check us out where you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much.